So I think we can start. So the first talk is Tomasz Kupś.
Yes, this is the first.
Yes. So we have 30 minutes, including questions. So you should take something like 20, up to 25 minutes, if that's fine with you. And let us start.
I can?
Yeah, please start the presentation. You have 20 or 25 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the conference organizers. I have the great honor of presenting the result, my research that I conducted with Darius Vilnius, my friend and co-worker on many projects. The next. When I first came to Vilnius many years ago in search of evidence of the Polish reception of Kant's philosophy, I didn't expect to be connected with Lithuania and Vilnius for the following years, of course. It was at the time when Professor Heinrich Abicht was preparing articles for the Bloomsbury Dictionary of 18th century German philosophers. And when he was looking for information about Johann Heinrich Abicht, German philosopher, supporter of Kant's philosophy, employed in Vilnius. But we didn't know much about Abicht at that time, and we couldn't help Professor Klemmer. It is surprising, but Polish textbooks on the history of philosophy were practically silent about Abicht. But today, I can confirm that the libraries and archives of Vilnius, Kiev, and Kraków have uncovered some of their treasures, and we know about Abicht's activity in Vilnius much more. Once again, the thesis of the French historian Daniel Deveau was confirmed. At the beginning of the 19th century, Vilnius was the most important scientific center of the former Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and true capital of culture. But at the beginning of the 19th century, Vilnius University was organized in a way utterly contrary to the intentions of the founders of the Polish Commission of National Education. Hugo Kołłątaj directly expressed his dissatisfaction in letters to Tadeusz Czacki, in which he criticized the Vilnius University laws introduced by Tsar Alexander I. Kołłątaj also criticized the personal policy of rector Hieronim Strojnowski and curator Prince Adam Jerzy Czartoryski, which decided to make the University of Vilnius a cosmopolitan center of science that meets European standards. To achieve this goal, Strojnowski and Czartoryski decided to employ foreign scientists in Vilnius. The selection of new professors was to be made through open competitions. As history shows, Vilnius gained outstanding scientists thanks to this approach, of whom university is proud to this day. Just mention Józef Frank or Ludwik Bojanus, I think. Unfortunately, some of the professors employed at the time brought disgrace to the university, such as Paolo Tarengi and Karl Christian Langsdorff. From our point of view, the most important thing is that among the foreign professors employed in 1804, there was Johann Heinrich Abicht, professor of philosophy and pedagogy from Erlangen, considered one of the most outstanding German Kantians, who in 1879 in a private letter, promised Immanuel Kant that he would devote his forces, all his forces, to the victory of Kant's philosophy. Abicht worked in Vilnius for 12 years, the longest of any philosophy professors working at the universities operating in the former Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth at the beginning of the 19th century. However, for almost 200 years, Abicht's work in Vilnius has been omitted mainly from textbooks on the history of Polish philosophy, not only, but especially Polish philosophy. Even contemporary Polish monographs devoted to Vilnius philosophy don't mention Abicht. What made that one of the most outstanding German Kantians who implement his own philosophical renewal program in Vilnius was almost wholly forgotten? This is the question. The answer is quite simple. Abicht lectured in Vilnius only in Latin, presenting summaries of his previously written books in German. Before his employment at Vilnius University, Abicht published over 20 books, but in Vilnius, he published only one small textbook in Latin. Historians of philosophy didn't know Abicht's curriculum or the content of his Vilnius lectures. They only repeated the judgments of the most influential people of Polish science at the beginning of the 19th century, as Hugo Kołłątaj, Jan Śniadecki, etc. Abicht's activity in Vilnius was evaluated not based on his scientific and teaching achievements, but from the perspective of criteria imposed by the representatives of the Polish National Education Commission. I believe that Abicht was unlucky that his activity in Vilnius began when Latin was declining as the universal language of science and education. Of course, the Francophile community of Polish scholars in the 18th century was unprepared to draw knowledge about German philosophy from direct sources, but also at the beginning of the 19th century, many French textbooks mediated the reception of Kant's philosophy in Poland, imposing a specific and favorable interpretation of German philosophy. For example, Hugo Kołłątaj's confession is significant. In one of his letters from 1803, he admits, sorry, this is not this. Moment, please. Yes, there is. Hugo Kołłątaj confession is significant. This is this text. In one of his letters, he admits that he draws his knowledge of Kant's philosophy from the works of Joseph-Marie de Gerando. French textbooks on the history of philosophy convince Kołłątaj that Kant's philosophy was Neoplatonic metaphysics revived in the 18th century. Identifying German philosophy and metaphysics is typical all Polish scientific criticism of that time. We cannot be surprised then when Kołłątaj visited Vilnius 1 year later, his assessment of the lectures by the Kantist Abicht was devastating. the awards of Kołłątaj. It said to her what the German metaphysician teaches there. This is Kołłątaj's judgment about Abicht, expressed in a letter to Jan Śniadecki. Of course, Śniadecki shared Kołłątaj's opinion not only because he trusted Kołłątaj's authority, but above all because he also drew arguments from the Gerando's French textbooks. Considering these facts, it's not surprising that one of the most eminent German Kantians didn't establish any philosophical school in Vilnius. The group of Polish supporters of Abicht was small and did not influence the fate of Vilnius University. On the contrary, Abicht not only had to face the objective difficulties of teaching an unpopular philosophy in a foreign language, the prejudices of the Polish scientific community also did in favor Abicht. It can be said that Abicht found himself in opposition to the entire system of Polish science and education, which since the 1780s had been focused on eliminating metaphysics from education and supporting almost only French and English empirical philosophy. Meanwhile, despite the Polish Commission of National Education Reforms, lectures on metaphysics were restarted in Kraków, thanks to Austrians, and in Vilnius, thanks to the Russians, contrary, of course, to the earlier Polish reforms introduced by Kołłątaj. Under these circumstances, university lectures on metaphysics became a political matter. I call this set of circumstances unfavorable to Abicht Polish institutional anti-Kantianism. At the turn of the 18th and 19th centuries, Kantianism in Polish science occurred almost exclusively outside institutional academic science. Abicht's employment in Vilnius challenged this tendency. However, it didn't change the general situation of Polish philosophy at the time. On the contrary, the conflict between the dominant trends in philosophy in Polish science became even more apparent. At the beginning of the 19th century, the determination of Polish scientific institutions to stop the expansion of German philosophy among Poles even increased. For this reason, the reception of German philosophy in Poland at the beginning of the 19th century was more hidden than open. This hidden reception of Kantian philosophy was an important phenomenon given a specific character to the area in the history of Polish philosophy. The case of Abicht is a good confirmation of this thesis. In 1807, Jan Śniadecki became rector of the University of Vilnius. Śniadecki's conflict with Abicht was inevitable. However, it was not just a personal conflict. The subject of the dispute between Śniadecki and Abicht was the goals of teaching philosophy and its position in the university. Unlike Abicht, Śniadecki believed that philosophy should not be a general introduction to academic education. According to Śniadecki, philosophy is rather the culmination of scientific knowledge and the last stage of education. Abicht, on the other hand, was preparing countless ambitious philosophy curricula, arguing that philosophical lectures should cover ever new topics such as ethics, anthropology, psychology, critique of reason, etc. The conflict reached its climax when Abicht persuaded Prince Czartoryski to allow him to give lectures on moral philosophy. Reacting to this extension of Abicht's activity, Śniadecki decided to engage in public polemic. Today, we know that the expanding curriculum of Abicht's philosophical lecture directly prompted Śniadecki to publish the essay on metaphysics in 1814. This essay begins with a tribute to Kołłątaj's educational policy, but in fact, it criticizes Abicht's philosophy and his activity at the University of Vilnius. Abicht responds immediately to Śniadecki's criticism in a French brochure distributed as manuscript copies in Vilnius. Then he prepared this dissertation for printing and sent it to Dorpat to obtain censorship consent for publication. Unfortunately, Abicht died soon after, and the text, his polemic with Rector Śniadecki, was never published. I believe that this episode shows what role Abicht played in Vilnius philosophy. Abicht provoked Śniadecki into public philosophical activity. In this way, the most crucial philosophical debate in Polish philosophy at the beginning of 19th century was initiated. Unfortunately, Abicht didn't participate in this debate, which he caused himself. However, this debate brought to light other authors who shared Abicht's view, arguing favoring Kantian philosophy and metaphysics. Today, when the whole philosophical world celebrates the 300th anniversary of the birth of Immanuel Kant, I wanted to present an important episode from the history of the reception of Kantian philosophy in the Polish-Lithuanian history of science. The case of Abicht convinced me that continuing research on the common scientific and cultural heritage of former Vilnius, of course, can bring many discoveries, also regarding the reception of Kant's philosophy. I'm sure that future generations of researchers will have the opportunity to confirm the richness of Lithuanian culture and its contribution to European science through new discoveries. So, at the end, once again, I would like to thank the conference organizers, thank you, and also thank especially Darius Viliunas for years of fruitful cooperation. Thank you, Darius. If I cannot provide satisfactory answers, I believe Darius will be better able to answer a question, of course. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. So we have a few minutes for a question, if anyone has one. Any questions here?
I would like to ask you, thank you very much for your brilliant presentation. It was really very important for us, for me especially. And I would like to ask you some silly question. Can you evaluate Abicht's role in the history of Lithuanian philosophy and maybe in Polish philosophy as well? Is he the most serious philosopher or he isn't? Thank you.
So I see only one role of Abicht in our philosophy. This is like Socrates, I think. In these circumstances, Polish philosophy, inspired only by French and English empirical philosophy, and shows students and probably oppositors like Śniadecki possibility German philosophy, new idealistic philosophy, for example, and other. But probably that was not possible to find authors and professors in Polish philosophy that could be continue this this proposition, because we have another interest in our science and culture. It was granted on new. I had it in my presentation, but I had to short presentation, and at the end, not possible to explain everything, because we have political reason stay against expansive German culture. But that was the same grant that was inspiring for Śniadecki and Kołłątaj, maybe, I don't know. They tried to support Polish philosophy, Polish language, Polish terminology, and so on, And yes. But the most important is, for me, of course, that Abicht was grant Śniadecki's activity, philosophical activity, because before his first publication about metaphysics, he never published about philosophy. That was relatively late after Abicht activity in Vilnius, I think. Sorry, too long.
Thank you so much.